40 North in Provo, Utah. And we're going to begin tonight's meeting with a roll call. And we'll start down here with Board Member Hall.
Melanie Hall, Board Member.
Gina Hales, Board Member.
Meg Van Wagenen, Board Member.
Wendy Dow, Superintendent.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board President.
Jennifer Partridge, Vice President.
Terry McCabe, Board Member.
Lisa Boyce, Board Member.
Devin Daly, Director of Accounting.
All right, thank you so much. And is there a motion to convene our business meeting this evening?
I move that we convene business meeting.
Thank you. Motion made by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Van Wagenen, and we are now in our business meeting. Okay, we are going to start tonight with some opening remarks given by Board Member Lisa Boyce.
All right, thank you. First of all, thank you for those who are here in person and those who are watching either in real time or later who watch the recording. I just wanted to share tonight as we start a couple of thoughts that I've had, and I hope they'll come together around what it is we're doing and why it matters so much to all of us. I think public education is really the foundation of our democracy, and I think it's one of the most inspiring things to watch our children learn and to see them catch new ideas and see them empowered by what they're able to accomplish. This last weekend when we were at the Utah School Boards Association conference, something that our keynote speaker, President Shane Reese, shared about a Gallup poll really struck with something that I've seen in my own family with my children. He talked about the fact that, let's see if I get this right, that if a student knew that they had a faculty member, and this is secondary ed to which he was referring in this poll, a faculty member who cared about them, who made them excited about learning and encouraged them to pursue their dreams, they had a more than 100% increase in their report of sort of well-being and outcome. They were engaged. They reported being engaged in their work and thriving in their lives at like more than 100% higher than those who didn't have those three things: a teacher who cared about them, who made them feel excited about learning, and who encouraged them to pursue their dreams. And so I started thinking about my own children, and I asked them, can you name an educator who you believed at some point, K through 12, cared about you, or got you excited about learning, or kind of told you not to give up on your dreams? And all 6 of my kids could immediately name someone. And one of my kids was saying it was a 4th grade teacher. He named her by name. And I remember her. It was her first year teaching out of school, out of college, and she taught him how to write. And she gave him a rubric to how to think about his ideas, and it even had some math formulas and how to pick 3 sentences and make those ones stronger, and then how to ask for feedback and how to say to someone giving him feedback in 4th grade on his writing, like, here's some specific questions and I love your ideas, and then how to empower himself to say, but keep in mind that I'm the writer, and so I'll take that in and I'll choose which things to use as I make my piece better. And you know, he's a college graduate, and then several of my other kids were like, oh yeah, you gave us those handouts. That one 4th grade teacher and the power that she had on my student. And so as we're thinking about the work we're doing, we cannot underestimate the importance of what we do for our students. And it doesn't have to be a teacher. It can be any caring adult in their world, right, who does these things for a student. And this is why what we do matters so much to all of us, to our parents and our community members. And it's part of why emotions run high around decisions that get made. And we all come with different voices. It's why we need all of the voices. Corresponding with this idea that really I've been feeling so strongly about how lucky my kids have been to have caring adults in their lives throughout their schooling who gave them a belief that they could be learners and that they could follow their dreams, has been sort of my reading and understanding better around the Dignity Index. And I was thrilled to see it on every table at the USBA conference. There was a card with just those scores. I don't know if you're familiar with it, around this Dignity Index and how we interact with each other and how we talk about the things that matter with decision makers, with family members, with teachers, with our children, et cetera. And I love that this highest level 8 in this index was a belief that everyone has inherent worth, and therefore we treat everyone with dignity no matter what. And just as a board member, I want to thank people who've come to me with concerns and questions with this understanding that we're part of trying to solve something together, that I'm going to believe that they have worth and they're going to believe that I have worth, and we're going to be part of a team to really inspire our students and to give our kids safe, accessible places of learning. I'm so grateful to be part of that team, and as the legislative session is about to open, I hope that as board members and teachers that we view legislators also as being teammates with who also care about our students, who are on our side. We all have different stewardships and ways that we are trying to make decisions, and so as we approach one another and as we share our ideas, or we voice an opinion on a piece of legislation even, that we do it with the dignity that we know it deserves, because what we're doing and the outcomes matter most, because the students are right in the center of it all. They can pick up on the vibe of, are we good? Are we doing something that's important? Is it inspiring? Am I powerful? All of those things that our kids need to know. And so I just, as we start today, wanted to remind myself and all of us that we are all in for every child here in Provo, and we have a stewardship to make sure we do that with dignity, and that we move forward with solutions in a way that will help our kids know that they can pursue their dreams and that learning is exciting.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for those words, for those wise words. Thank you so much. We're going to now be privileged to have be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the Lakeview Elementary School students from Girl Scout Troop 1693 and Boy Scout Pack 51.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, that was just delightful to have the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts with us tonight. Thank you so much for coming. To all those Lakeview students, that was a really special treat for us. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to our community connections portion of our meeting this evening. We're going to start with employee recognition, and that will be presented by Jason Cox, our Deputy Superintendent.
Good evening, school board. Thank you for this opportunity to recognize these amazing employees. We have another great group of people that we get to recognize today. I'd ask, as I read your name, please stand. Tonight we'll be recognizing Deanne Brown, Michelle McCluskey, Robin Stokes, Julia Brady, and Lisa Mullins. Thank you for those of you who could join us tonight. So we do have a video presentation that we'll be watching, and then we would love for the board to get the chance to thank you personally for the work you do. So after that, we'll have you come up here and start and go across the front and allow them to thank you. So.
So I've gotten to work with Julia for, I think, the past 3 years. I want to say the past 3 years she's been up here in the front office. When she first started in the front office, she was like a deer in the headlights. But you come to now, at this moment, she's got this office running, you know, right to a T. Her procedures of doing things, and she's like an awesome master of Power School now. It is so cool. And my nomination actually came from at a time when we were kind of short-handed up here in the front office. And Julia had to run the front office sort of by herself. She had to take all of the phone calls. She had to get the door. She had to, you know, call to the teachers. I mean, she was doing it for a couple days. She is a huge, huge part of helping Provost run the way it does, as great as it does. All the teachers know her and they love her, and I love working with her here at Provost.
I nominated Michelle because I feel like she has a list of contributions that she's done for this district. I met Michelle when I was at Centennial doing custodial work. I mean, not only custodial work, she also does bus checks at 4 in the morning to ensure the safety of our staff and students. She drives a bus, drives the kids, which is awesome. But she just faces every task and every situation that gets thrown her way with enthusiasm, a pep in her step, and a contagious smile. So she's one of my good friends, and she's amazing at what she does, and I look up to her in this district. She's amazing. So.
I nominated Lisa because I have worked with her in the last few years, and I've seen her work with students, and it's remarkable. She doesn't like to think it's a big deal, but it is a big deal when you go in that classroom and you see all she's able to facilitate for that student to make the classroom a seamless experience for him. It's a marvel, and so it just is worth recognizing Lisa for the hard work that she does to make that classroom experience so good for that student.
So I nominated Robin because she has been here for years and years and years and has been a steady presence for all the kids at West Ridge Elementary School. She knows every book in this library. She knows just what the kids want to read, and I would be lost without her because of her wealth of experience, and she's such a good friend. I'm so grateful that she works here. And like I said in my thing, if I could name this, I'd name it the Robin Stokes Library.
I nominated Deanne Brown because she goes above and beyond when it comes to educating students. She is compassionate, dedicated, extremely caring, and has a heart of gold. She is strongly dedicated to ensuring her students receive an outstanding education. Mrs. Brown teaches her students the importance of making good choices, being respectful and kind to others. She does all of this on top of giving them the academic education they so desperately need and deserve.
You up to go ahead and allow the board to thank you. So those of you that are here, please come on up. We'll have you start right over here.
How about one additional round of applause for our... All right, we are going to move now into our school report from Lakeview Elementary School. But before we do that, I just want to give everyone the quick heads up that as soon as we're done with our school report, we will have time for public input tonight. So if you're interested in giving input to the board, you'll need to fill out one of our forms that we have over on the table to my right and your left over here, and you'll just need to fill out the form completely and give it to Bonnie Totkus, who's our secretary over here. And then she'll get that to us and we'll be able to take that input from you tonight. So just be prepared to do that if you're interested in giving the board input. But for now, we will go ahead and hear from Principal Jamie Leachy from Lakeview Elementary.
Can you start it back at the beginning? All right. So I'm Jamie Davis Leachy. I'm the principal at Lakeview, and I'm very lucky to be at Lakeview. I love my job. I'm so grateful for our students here today that presented the pledge, and they just are so used to going into their Lion Pledge. They did that too, so that's awesome. I also want to say thank you as a school board for all that you do. I know that you do a lot of things that are probably thankless that we don't see, but we feel your support, and I'm really grateful for that. So I want to tell you first a little bit about Lakeview and about our student demographics. So we have 39% of our students that are economically disadvantaged, 10% are students with disabilities, 23% are officially classified as multilingual learners, but we have many more multilingual students than that. And 42% of our students participate in Portuguese immersion, which starts in first grade. Our school has become more diverse, which we love. We are now, a third of our students are Latino, and that's divided between a Brazilian population that's Portuguese speaking and a Hispanic population that's Spanish speaking. And then we have 57% that's white, 5% Pacific Islander, 2% Black, 2% Asian, and 1% Native American. And we're really grateful for the involvement that we have from all of those communities. We are, I believe, still the largest elementary school in the district, and because of that, we have a large staff. So we have 40 full-time employees and 53 part-time employees. And I want to tell you a little bit about the demographics of our licensed educators. So one of the things that I'm most proud about is that 35% of our faculty is multilingual. And that's not just in our immersion program. We really have sought out having multilingual people that can be examples for our students. We like to consider ourselves a multilingual and multicultural school. We have 28 classroom teachers, 2 special ed teachers, and 3 related servers, which include an occupational therapist, school psychologist, and speech language pathologist. We have an admin team of 5 people, and I'm going to introduce them as we talk about each of their roles. And then we have 5 specialty teachers. And we're primarily a white female population, but we have seen growth in having more Latino teachers both in and out of our Portuguese immersion program. This is the mission statement for Lakeview, and it is interesting because Lakeview opened in 2008, and so even though it's 15 years old, it still is really a North Star for us, and it aligns really well with the vision that I have. So I'm just going to point out a couple pieces, but it talks about student intellectual and emotional growth, their behavior, cooperation between the community, and then having a climate that's safe and supportive where students can succeed in an ever-changing world. So the way that that looks like at our school is, this is the vision that I have is through MTSS, which is having multi-tiered systems of support for our students. And I really like envisioning this in the way of the whole child. So we think about the whole child and not just their academic growth, but also their behavior and social emotional growth. And all 3 of those areas are really important. And the rest of my presentation, I'm going to kind of touch on each of those areas and what we're doing there. And obviously, being MTSS, there's levels of support within each of those areas, 3 different tiers. So first we have our social emotional area, and for this I want to take a minute and recognize our social worker. So this is Shelby Moss, our social worker, and I want to give a huge thank you to the school board because I can't think of something that has changed our school more significantly in the past few years than having a dedicated social worker. Since the pandemic, it has been extremely difficult to be able to address the social emotional needs of students, and Shelby's been such an important part of that. And with each of these 3 areas of social emotional, academics, and behavior, our goal is really that Brian Mangum and I can oversee everything, but we have someone leading each of those areas. And I neglected to introduce Brian. So I'm going to take a second to say this is Brian Mangum, and he's our assistant principal. And he is a wonderful person to work with. And both he and I really balance each other out well and work together great. So going back to social emotional, we have worked really hard on 2 pieces over the last few years, which is belonging and growth mindset. And this is our student responses where they're self-reflecting from Panorama. And you can see since the fall of 2019, we've had a 15% growth in growth mindset, which is definitely not accidental. When you look at the Panorama data, sometimes it goes all over, but that's a really big incline. And that's been because we've been talking about growth mindset all the time, and we're significantly above the national average there. In terms of belonging, our theme for students this year is I belong at Lakeview and Lakeview belongs to me. And so we talk a lot about that. We also care a lot about restorative practices and trauma-informed practices. So as a faculty, we've really tried to better understand the ACE scores that students have and how trauma impacts them in their academic and all parts of their lives. And one way we've addressed that is that we've grown a wellness room from being a small little office to being a full classroom that has lots of different opportunities for students to get sensory input or sensory output, to be able to calm themselves. Our ultimate goal is that they can learn to self-regulate themselves, and we've seen huge success with our wellness room. Last year, over half of our students used the wellness room at least once in the year. So we're really grateful for how successful it's been. Okay, the next area is behavior. And last year, again, since the pandemic, we noticed, behavior is increasingly difficult, and we felt that we needed someone to spearhead that. So Michelle Birmingham is here, and Michelle is our behavior interventions coordinator. She was a teacher for 27 years, and having a teacher in this role is really important because she understands how to support teachers. So for me, supporting behavior is also about supporting teachers so that they are not carrying a load alone. So Michelle works a lot with our student success team. She helps us stay really data-driven. So, she runs our agenda for student success team, and then we use both Educator's Handbook and Panorama to keep ourselves grounded in that data. Okay, and then last but of course not least, very important, is our academics. And we created these tiers of supports a couple years ago, but we felt like there was something missing with academics. We had an instructional coach from the district who we loved, but we didn't have her enough. And so we decided to take some of our own money to allocate to be able to have a dedicated instructional coach at our school. So I'm going to recognize Melinda Hafen. She's our instructional coach and has over 23 years of experience in the classroom. And it's been a game changer for us this year to have this support for our students and, again, particularly for our teachers. And one of the things that Melinda has really helped us with is our focus this year is on teams, which worked well. I guess Wendy and I telepathically both came up with that focus on teams. So we've been working on finding our swing. And for professional learning communities, the structure that we are using to increase and really revamp PLCs is impact teams. And this has been great for us. Teaching and learning has been very supportive in providing us a person that can help guide us through this. And our ultimate goal is to reach collective efficacy. So according to Hattie's research, individual teachers can only do so much, but when they are a team and they are coming together, then they have an effect size that's off the charts. Our leadership team and our admin team created our school improvement plan. We have specific goals in each of these areas: academics, students with disabilities, multilingual learners, behavior, social emotional, teacher professional development. And the biggest thing that we've done this year that I want to tell you about is just our data dives. So the state data came out in November, and we took one day with every grade level to be able to meet with the teachers, our admin team with the teachers to say, what can we do to look at our data and then create a plan of action for what we can do to improve student learning? And these data dives have been very time consuming, but absolutely amazing in what they're yielding. And again, having an instructional coach has been absolutely essential in making that happen. And we're continuing that work of our teams in our professional learning community meetings. We have a lot of work to do, so we're starting with agendas to really keep us grounded in data. But as we're moving forward, teams are also making the adaptations they need to improve. These are the scores that we've looked at with our data. The highlights are we've had good growth in English language arts. Science is our strongest area, and then we've had some losses since last year. And so that's one of the things that we've been addressing in our data dives to make sure that we are finding ways to increase student learning. And then this is our Acadians. We've seen some really great growth with Acadians and with our especially since letters and the implementation of 95% core. So we're seeing improvements there. One of the things that is the biggest takeaway from all of our data is that experienced teachers have the best data. And so that just leads me into challenges and needs that we have. So first, the thing that keeps me up at night is how do we retain the teachers so they can become the experienced teachers who have these great results. Our experienced teachers do so much with students and they manage so many things. And we need that support for them in academics, behavior, social, emotional. The other big challenge we have, again, is the increase that we've had in extreme behaviors, especially among our kindergartners and the lower grades. And we are still currently a TSI school needing targeted support for students with disabilities. So our special ed team is extremely important, and the work that they do collaborating with classroom teachers. So that is everything I want to tell you about Lakeview, and I know you usually ask questions, so if you have any, let me know.
Thank you so much for all this fabulous information. Is there any questions from the board for Principal Beachy?
Well, I just want to thank you so much for using your data in such an important way to inform practice. I just think the more comfortable we get, sometimes we say those words, but I don't know what that means and what does that look like for me with my preschool class, for example. How do I use data to make me a better teacher? And so just modeling that and then just over and over again, I can't thank you enough for doing it. I think it's how we really do listen and learn to do better at our jobs. So all of us included, right? So thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of fear with data, but we've worked through that in the data dives, and that's been really helpful to say we're triangulating data. We're not just looking at one little piece. We're finding the themes, and so yeah.
So my question,
if you could just wave a magic wand and have what you needed to be able to address those increase in behavior issues, what would you have? What would you need?
I would say two pieces. So the structure that I've set up in terms of having someone like an instructional coach and a behavior person and the social worker. So I'm funding the behavior person and part of the instructional coach. So funding for that, I think all of us as principals really feel like we need someone, and we need more than a para. Our paras are amazing, but more than a para leading behavior because it's so complex. And then the other piece is having really strong special ed teams that we are keeping, an example is like our related servers. Our speech language pathologists and occupational therapists are two of the most important people in our building, and really making sure we can retain them and support them I think is really important.
I just want to say I love your theme. I belong at Lakeview, and Lakeview belongs to me. I feel like I'm going to take that to my kids. Just this shared ownership and this shared responsibility to one. That's just fantastic.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Gina.
I just have to echo the data. I'm a data junkie, and I appreciate seeing how you can use data to actually make an observable difference. So thank you for doing that and leading the way with that. I did notice that 5th grade seem to struggle. Have you been able, well, and obviously I don't want to call out our 5th graders or our teachers. Have you been able to figure out what that is about?
Yeah, so we really dug deep with each team, and we drilled down into individual teachers. And so there were little pieces there. Our 4th grade team has had a lot of success over the years with their scores. They're also our most experienced team. And so some of it was, okay, what is 4th grade doing that is helping them? And like little things like, well, we take the RISE benchmarks. We help kids understand how to be prepared. Testing's part of our school culture. We have to be prepared for it. So sharing those ideas among teams. And yes, we did talk with each grade level about their strengths and weaknesses, and we set a very specific action plan with actionable items that by the end of this year each team will complete to address the concerns.
Thank you. And I also want to say I love the James Clear quote, Atomic Habits, if I'm in the middle of reading it. So it's awesome. So you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, and it explains a lot. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, I just wanted to say that Assistant Superintendent Seitz and I have the opportunity to come in and sit in on one of these data dives. They go for the whole day. So we were just there for about an hour, and the way that you directed the teachers through that process and the supports that were put in place, you really created an atmosphere where teachers could be vulnerable because they knew where they were going to get the right supports. They were already asking all the right questions and wanting to do the right things. And then tell me if this statistic is wrong that I remember, because I seem to remember you saying that 95% of the students that you send to Dixon Middle School are on track for progress on Acadiance reading. Am I remembering this right?
Oh my gosh, I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm so sorry.
Because I wrote it down. Do you not remember this, Jared? I felt like I was like, wow. So we're going to double check that. But,
we did.
But
I don't know.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but that was one of the things that was over the course of their 7 years at Lakeview.
Yes.
We are sending very strong readers to Dixon.
And when you're looking at that you do still have a significant portion of your population that's impacted, that's phenomenal work for showing that as a system that you're doing a great job in serving your students. So
thanks.
Well, thank you so much. I'll just finish up with one last comment or series of comments. But Lakeview is one of my schools, and I already knew a lot of all this great stuff before you came tonight. So none of the great news here was surprising to me. But I do want to just tell you, just first, I loved your data pool rules. And my favorite one was that there's no feeling guilty or discouraged allowed, which is really, I think, so important when you're doing these data dives, because they can be discouraging. But the fact that you make a safe space for people to really be vulnerable and to analyze that data and be able to use it correctly is just fabulous. I love that so much. I also was able to participate with you and your staff in one of the book clubs, which was a really great experience. And I just appreciate all that you're doing as principal. And I just want your admin staff to know how much we appreciate what they're doing as well. And if you'll also take back to everyone who's working at your school, your 40 full-time and your 53 part-time employees, please tell them thank you from the board for all the amazing things that are happening at Lakeview.
I absolutely will. It's a team effort. Melinda made the data pool rules, so I got to tell everyone that that was her. But it just shows that that teacher perspective being on an admin team is really essential, and that's what they bring to our team, and I'm really grateful that we have this great team.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, do we have any forms for public input today, Bonnie? No, all right, last chance for public input forms if anyone's interested tonight. Okay, I think we can go ahead and move on then. This is not part of this current agenda, but we did need to table a few items from our earlier study session, and so we're going to go ahead and go backwards and hit items 8 through 15 from our study session. And then we will go ahead and start with our business items. So we will go back to item number 8. We're going to have an update on the district approved curriculum now, and we'll give that time to Superintendent Dow.
Okay, will you guys pull up that presentation for me? Yep, that's the one. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I was tasked with providing an update to the board about where we are in the use of district adopted curriculum. And so I wanted to just kind of start with a few definitions that I think sometimes get conflated. Oh, I got a mouse. This is very exciting. That get kind of conflated as we talk about this. So sometimes we have individuals that will conflate these terms and they'll think, well, because I'm teaching the standards, then that's curriculum, that's the same thing, and it really isn't. And so we just want to clarify this, and this is something that we need to make sure that our teachers are understanding. The standards are developed by USBE, and they are established by grade level or by subject area. And then our teaching and learning department has done a really good job of creating essential standards that, like, if you're really going to focus on these areas, these are the things that need to be really zeroed in on. Curriculum is what is adopted by the district to help teachers teach those standards. And it is actually in state code that one of your tasks. No. Oh, yes. Yeah. No. Wow, I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, maybe you need to be in charge of this. Yes, good job.
I can if you want.
Oh my goodness. So part of this is outlined in state code that the Board of Education actually gives approval to that curriculum and outlines the actual purchase of that curriculum, and that those district-wide adoptions do have to be in alignment with the standards that are adopted by USBE. Now, not every single subject area has district-wide curriculum, because we do have these one-off subjects, like sometimes CTE classes and different things like that. But for the most part, our core areas all have this district-wide curriculum that is adopted, and we have a process where we renew and update that curriculum every so many years. Then we also have pacing guides, which basically says how much time a teacher needs to spend on each skill or standard, and then the scope and sequence is the order in which they're teaching it. So sometimes we get all of that terminology conflated. So we can go to the next slide now. So state code does require an adoption process to be outlined, which we do have, and it does require community input, and we do follow that. Like individuals can go whenever we're doing a curriculum adoption. There is a public input period. We don't usually get a lot of public input, but it does include teachers, parents, community members. Our teaching and learning department does do a lot to especially solicit feedback from teachers, and it does take a lot of time to put all of this together. And then we also have a component that requires professional learning. So next slide. Now, the question is, why is it necessary, one, to have district-wide curriculum, and two, to use district-wide curriculum?
So first and foremost, it creates that consistency across schools and teachers. A lot of individuals mistake this and think that it means that my lessons are extremely scripted. They're really not. The lesson plans are not scripted. There's resources and tons of things that the teachers can pull from those resources, and then they use their best judgment as professionals and educators to make adjustments based on their students' needs. And then they can draw from all of these different resources throughout the curriculum. But part of this is ensuring that teachers are teaching grade level standards. And it also provides the transparency that is now required by law. So by law, a teacher can be requested to produce their lesson plan for that day with references to the district adopted curriculum that goes with that standard, and that a parent at any point in time can come in and request to preview that district-wide curriculum. So if a teacher is outside of that district-wide curriculum, we are not following that law of that is required through transparency that has been set up by our state. So then the question that comes up is, are we using district-approved curriculum? So in many cases, yes, particularly at the elementary level. I've been in every single elementary school. I've been in classrooms in every single elementary school, and yes, I see that happening. Do we have some outliers of that? Yes, that sometimes does happen, and those assistant superintendent sites and I address with the principal in those cases. We sometimes do have less compliance at the secondary level, and it is important to remember that many of those subject areas do not have district-wide adoptions, and I don't know. It is my goal to make sure that all of our teachers understand that this is an expectation coming from the superintendent. So for example, our English language arts teachers at the 7 through 12 level are in the second year of a curriculum adoption process. They are going through curricular materials right now. They have already done the needs assessment. I am meeting with them on Tuesday during the professional development day to basically deliver a very similar presentation to say it's not an option to just grab this novel and this piece of literature, this article. We do need to follow what it is that we adopt. There's lots of reasons for that. One is we don't want a student who's sitting in 8th grade to be ending up reading the same material in 10th grade because those teachers are not communicating. It ensures that we have that vertical alignment that's taking place and that our students are building those skills throughout. And there is a lot of choice in the curriculum. It really is not so prescribed. Like, there are many different things so that teachers can find what they love in it. So there is a supplemental materials policy that is also established in state code that goes through an approval process through the school level. But for the most part, teachers don't need to do that unless they're pulling in a current event or something like that, and schools have procedures for how to follow that. But that's where that district-wide adoption really does provide them with a lot of protection and also ensures that our students are getting what they need. So our next steps is that we really need to communicate the expectations. I don't know what, it feels like there was a little bit of a different culture that existed, and it was very site-based. For our teaching and learning department to be able to effectively support our schools, we need to make sure that our principals and teachers feel supported in that our principals know that we will support them as they create that expectation for their teachers as well, and that we don't create exemptions. You know, well, you're a really good teacher, so it applies to everybody except you. It's everybody is participating in this process. We also want to make sure that teachers understand what the rationale is, because why is this necessary? I don't know that that's been communicated. I don't know that a lot of our teachers even know that that's in state code. It has also been a recommendation from district leadership team that it could be potentially a part of our evaluation process of teachers. Are they using the adopted curriculum? Are they teaching the standards, and are they following a scope and sequence? Now, obviously, there's going to be variation in that, right? You want teachers to be able to adapt to the needs of their students, but then that would be a follow-up conversation with the supervisor as to why that would be the case, so that something is very deliberate. I'll give you a quick example. At Provost Elementary, we had a teacher yesterday as I was talking with their faculty who talked about a concern about where she's trying to really build some vocabulary with the students. And for the most part, she's always on grade level and utilizing that, but she needed to kind of do some things over here to build that background knowledge and wanted to make sure that that was okay. And it's like, yes, you do have expertise and judgment that you're going to bring to this. What I don't want to see happening is there's a judgment made, fourth graders can't handle fourth grade curriculum, so I'm going to start teaching them second grade curriculum. So we just want to make sure that we're being consistent across the board. And then we know that we need to continue to provide ongoing training, and we need to figure out a feedback loop. I think Lisa has been really pushing for this too, but we do need a feedback loop. And one of the questions that I've been asking as I've been going out to schools is, how do I get that input from teachers? And so we're getting a lot of different ideas about, they would even like a survey that goes out, like what are the additional supports? So it's not always being filtered through the principal. They feel like they have a direct line to district leadership. And I think there are some ways in which we could improve that. And we need to make sure teachers feel safe in asking those questions. Like, what do I do in this particular situation? I do have a student who's new to the country. How am I going to handle that? They aren't on grade level, and what does that look like? And I want to make sure teachers feel really safe in being vulnerable and admitting that they need help, and that we're not judgy in those situations, but we're resourceful and helpful and like, hey, let's dig in and figure this out. Next slide. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? I actually have
a couple.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to see this conversation going on. I get questions about curriculum selection process, et cetera, often, and I don't always know answers. This was helpful to me to just clarify for me a little. And as I read back through policy 4020, I just had a couple of quick questions.
You bet.
The first one is just, I know that we have a district curriculum committee.
Yes.
And it says in policy this is a teacher-led committee. So, and that it will represent all of our schools, elementary and secondary schools. How are those teachers chosen, and how is that committee organized?
I'm going to answer, and then Anne-Marie, you pipe in if I don't get this right. My understanding is that we usually ask principals to select some of those teachers, or to ask for, honestly, it's going to be a lot by volunteers because it takes a lot of time, right?
And how many people serve on that district
That's a
curriculum
great
committee
question.
during phase one?
I do know that we have the teachers serve on it for the whole 3 years, so they watch the process go
phase
through.
1 through 3.
Through 3.
On that committee, okay.
The goal is to have that consistency.
The mic, so the vast audience can hear.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm just assuming there's an online audience, and that's why I came to the mic. So the committee is, we first go to principals and say,
Okay.
Can you please suggest, ask someone to? The teachers are paid a stipend, an hourly stipend, figuring that they're spending about 3 hours a month on it.
Okay.
And it's the same committee that goes through the 3 phases, which is typically done in 3 years. So the same group of people go through the needs assessment in the first part, and then go through the resource selection in the second part, and the third part, the final year, is professional development, where they're consulting about that. I've had some principals sometimes saying, I can't get anyone.
Sure.
And we get that. We obviously are not going to force it, but it is that concern that, the feedback loop isn't happening at that school. That teacher's not able to go back and talk to the teams and report on things. But we put updates in the weekly notifications each month after those meetings to give everyone a summary of what's been going on.
And is it a large group, like, of teachers in that committee, or?
It depends on the topic, the subject. The curriculum review cycle is based on the state standards review cycle, so they might just be changing. They used to usually break it up more. So if the standards are only changing for elementary music, it might just be one teacher from every school.
Right.
If it's, K-12 math is the upcoming one, so that will be a much bigger one. We've asked our principals to have the department chair be in there in the high schools, because there's such a touch point for that. And we've typically, depending on the size of the whole group, had bigger representation from bigger schools. So each school, we ask for a teacher committee member, and then we ask for one administrative member, so one principal from elementary and or secondary, depending on the content.
Thanks. And then someone asked me this week about those meeting times, because it said in the policy that they're posted. I didn't know where those meeting times and places were posted.
So we have committee meetings, I think it's the fourth Monday, 3 to 5, and it's on our district calendar
Okay.
is when those committee meetings
Okay.
take place. So it's shared with everybody as to when those are. So,
Perfect. I can direct them there.
Yeah.
Is that right? And I told them the first year, from what I read, they can observe and not participate, and then you add parents. It says 5 parents. That second year could be added to that district curriculum committee. And so I just encouraged them to reach out actually to Anne Marie if that was the right thing to do, if
Sure.
they're interested in being part of that process.
Yeah. So in the second year, it officially turns into an adoption process.
Okay.
And so we ask up to 5, well, we always ask at least 5 community members and or parents. I typically ask professors from both local universities, and then I've gone to PTA or other groups to try and find parent members. Principals have sometimes offered them. Again, the sad truth is there is a lot of interest, and sometimes those people can't come to all, or
Right.
not every invitation is accepted, understandably, but
Okay.
so at any process, at any point, anyone can come and observe the meetings. In that period, the committee expands for those 5 more people.
Okay.
And so they're doing a lot of work in that regard. Then there's a public meeting at the end and we've typically spent a whole day where we just open up a gym at the GLC.
So I told them you always preview it for every parent
Yeah.
at that point. Okay.
And we are in the adoption cycle, posting those times. I'll figure out where that is
Okay.
and make sure that we're doing that adequately.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
and part of the reason I've had some teachers that have been frustrated by the commitment of the 3 years, but part of that is to actually watch it go through that whole process, because they're the ones that are identifying that a need exists, and then making sure that the curricular materials that we're looking at are actually addressing those needs. And so if you swap those individuals out, it takes a lot of time then to get people up to speed as a result. And then when we're designing the professional learning, you want the same individuals who can say, wow, this is going to be really overwhelming, like we need more time, or this is where I would really spend a lot of the time, and how this should be laid out. So that teacher input does become important. It is a time commitment, but I sat down with Judy Rose at the beginning of the year, and she really laid it out and had a really nice, like, it really made sense to me as to why these things were designed the way that they were, so that we were feeling like we had that teacher input and that they were really understanding the process, because it's really important that those are the individuals that are communicating it. So if there's something that we need to be communicating better in terms of our rationale or why we're doing it, then we can be better on that front. And I think it will help more if I can be more involved at different points of time in those particular committees, so that they're understanding this isn't just something teaching and learning came up with. This is part of a board directive, this is in board policy, and this is a priority of the superintendent.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I love this update. I'm grateful that that it's coming down from you for everyone to use the curriculum and whatnot. The one question I have, though, is when there are subjects and whatnot, I assume the ones that don't have adopted curriculums are like the smaller classes, or maybe elective classes where there's one particular class in that certain subject area or whatnot. What do we do for those teachers? If they found a curriculum they liked that they wanted the district to purchase, could they do that, and how do we also monitor, in the name of transparency,
That's a great
those
question.
curriculums?
So, I mean, in a lot of cases, what's going to happen is your principal is going to be coordinating with that teacher. So the teacher's going to go to that principal and say, this is the course we have, and so we need this curriculum. You know, I found this curriculum. This works really well. They're going to have basically a conversation of what that looks like. It does say in our policy that principals do need to have it outlined what that policy looks like. I don't know where we're at with that. I don't know if principals have laid that out. So that's an area that we need to go in, and I need to close that hole, right, and make sure that we're tight on that, and that if I need to find out from principals too, would you like us to help you provide a framework for what that looks like so it's not more work, right, for the principal? They can always seek out assistance too from teaching and learning. And oftentimes when I was dealing with this as a principal, I would seek out from teaching and learning and say, hey, can you look at this and make sure this feels like this is fitting within state code and what we need? And then they would give me an evaluation back. I don't know that we have made that like an official feedback loop that goes back and forth, but definitely needs to be, so that our teachers feel protected, and also so that our parents are aware of what's happening. It does state in state code. I appreciated this line that said it is not expected that every single piece of curriculum that goes before a student is going to be reviewed, right, and go through this extensive review process. But there should be an attempt. So even a teacher is having a syllabus or a disclosure, they're going to list what those materials are. It shouldn't just be like, I'm just coming up with this. You know, there should be some really deliberate lesson planning. So that is something we need to take an inventory of. I don't know where we're at in that case, to be honest.
So I recognize that second piece that I just brought up is also a very, very big project.
Yes, it is.
And I recognize you can't do everything at once, but I'm happy with what's happening now with the report you just gave us, and I think that's great. And as soon as I feel like we get that in a good rhythm, then I would think at that time it would be good to look at those individual classes.
It would.
With all the extra time you have.
Yes, no, that's great. It's an important thing to do.
Okay. So, any further questions from the board on the curriculum?
So when I taught CTE classes at Tooele High School, they give you everything for CTE classes, which is wonderful. Makes your life much easier. Mm-hmm. The only problem they don't give is on pacing, and I'm glad you mentioned it in there. When I asked for help, I never got any about that, and it was really frustrating. So my concern is, does the current adopted curriculum give alternative pacing suggestions for the needs of students?
I would say it kind of does. I don't know that it's as I would say that if a teacher wants to go off pacing, that has to be a conversation that happens with the principal. The principal is the instructional leader of the school. So if that's something where I'm like, I feel like this happens a lot in highly impacted schools, like, right? So what does that look like? Part of the problem we want to make sure is there a way to help that student access that material and still keep moving them by spiraling back and building those prerequisite skills? And that's where we need to make sure that those individuals are reaching out to teaching and learning and getting the right support. That's a cultural shift that probably needs to happen, and so that teachers feel comfortable with that, because I think there is some, like, I don't want people to know that this is what I'm doing, and it's like, let's just be really transparent about what's happening and see how we can support. But you're right, and the different levels of support depend upon, a lot of times, the subject area, the grade level. Some things are mapped out much more explicitly than others are. So we definitely have room for improvement, for sure. So.
Well, it is hard when you have students that you want to make sure, right, get their foundation, but your pacing guide has you to keep moving before you feel like you've reached that space with enough students, and to know how to do what you're talking about. I think those are some skills that are hard to develop.
Very hard.
And that's where I'm grateful that our teachers are working on teams, so that you can kind of get some support and ideas for that, because you do have to think of both, right? Like moving forward and growth of every student, but also not leaving kids behind without that foundation, especially early on, so that, you know, as they hit harder academic language, the gap doesn't just keep widening.
Right. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard what we ask of our teachers. It really is. And I think sometimes we just say, well, just differentiate, and it's like, okay, what does that mean exactly? And how do you actually do that? And can someone actually model that? And what does that coaching cycle look like to support a teacher to do that? So so there are definitely things that are easier said, and then are we actually modeling and supporting the teachers through that? And have we built the structures to make sure that our schools have those supports? You know, if you don't have an instructional coach in every single building, it makes that really difficult. So.
Okay. Thank you so much for that update. And now we'll have another update.
Oh, yes.
On the elementary school lunches.
Excellent. Oh, I'm going to make you do this one.
All right.
Too.
I can do this.
It should be called ensuring adequate time for lunch. Sorry, I didn't title it exactly the same, so I threw you off. I apologize. You're totally fine. Love it. The snow squall might be happening out there. Who knows? Is it really?
Hey, we get it.
Oh, that makes me feel better. Just a little bit. Okay, so let me just give you some background to this, is that I think several board members actually were approached by some parents about being worried that their children did not have enough time to eat lunch, particularly at the elementary level, but there was also some concern that was expressed even at the middle school level. And so I just wanted to highlight what some of these concerns are, kind of talk about what our suggestions are, and then also concerns coming from schools, like from administrators, and really helping people to understand that this isn't just, we just make lunch longer. Like that seems like it would be that easy of a fix, but nothing in education is ever that easy of a fix. So first off, kids love recess, right? So if I have recess after lunch, I'm gonna eat a bite, dump my food, run out to play, right? That's what typically is going to happen. So anytime recess is after lunch and we're not requiring students to remain in the cafeteria for a full 20 minutes, they do rush out to recess and they don't finish eating. And we know that when they're not getting that adequate nutrition, it really impedes their ability to focus and to learn. And so this was a concern that was brought up by parents and is a very valid one. So next slide. Some of the secondary concerns are that there's long lines in the cafeteria, and so by the time that the student sits down to eat, they only have 5 to 10 minutes to eat. They stop to use the restroom. And so, again, same thing. If especially when you're dealing with middle schoolers who I believe just eat nonstop, then what happens is they're grabbing a bag of Doritos and Coke and whatever. Yeah, Will's nodding his head, right? And they're just, you know, eating nonstop during the day, and so that just results in this kind of incessant snacking. So guidelines that have been given by agencies, so the Centers for Disease Control actually states that students need to have their lunch and sit down and eat. So from the time they sit down, they need to have 20 minutes to eat their lunch, and the American Academy of Pediatrics also suggests the same. I also the federal program that runs child nutrition services also says under federal law that you actually have to have at least 15 minutes from the time the last lunch is served in that block for students to eat. So possible solutions, we can lengthen our lunch periods to 40 minutes. So that would ensures 20 minutes of eating time for students at all grade levels, specifically for elementary. By the time they go wash their hands, use the restroom, go through the line, they would have at least that 20 minutes for eating. We can also, there's a strong recommendation from several organizations that recess is scheduled before lunch so that students are not hurrying through their lunch, and that they're doing recess first, then we call them in, and then they have the 20 minutes to eat. If recess is still after lunch, not allowing the students to go out to recess before that 20 minutes, that would be another solution. However, this has lots of concerns from schools. So one of the things that happens is this changes people's work schedules. So we build our nutrition workers in the cafeteria are not full-time employees, and so this means that we have to adjust sometimes. If you look at Lakeview Elementary, has probably one of the best models I've seen. They do a 40-minute lunch, single grade level at a time, but their lunches start, I believe, at 10:20 in the morning, and the last lunch is not done until 1 p.m. So you have an issue of some students barely finishing breakfast, and now they're going to lunch, and you have other students who are going to be ravenously hungry by the time lunch comes around at 1 o'clock. And so they figured out some ways to mitigate that, but that takes some real effort, because one of the problems is that when you do and they do recess before lunch, when you do recess beforehand and you put 2 grade levels out, most of our elementary cafeterias cannot fit 2 grade levels in there at a time. So then you're calling in this grade level to lunch, and they're like, oh, this person doesn't know what grade level I'm a part of. I'm just going to stay out here, and they still won't come in for lunch. So that's why Lakeview went to the single grade level model, because then it's easy. All kids come in, now the next group goes out, and it's spaced out in that way. So that definitely can be an issue. It also requires more supervision, because if I'm going to have those students sit there for 20 minutes, they're going to be fast eaters. Like my kids and my family, they eat fast, because if they don't eat fast, the food is gone. So you eat fast, and so now what am I going to do with them for the other 10 minutes? They're going to wreak havoc on other students. So there has to be some sort of activity, greater supervision than just say maybe one cafeteria manager. Is that requiring teachers? What does that look like? How are you going to compensate those individuals? And what activities are provided? So either way, you're going to have greater supervision. If you are going to put 2 grade levels out at a time at recess and you're calling one in, you're going to have more adult supervision to help you round up and who know those kids and what grade level they are. So and then do we need to actually change our overall schedule to meet the minimum instructional time, because now you're going to add 10 minutes to lunch, you're losing 10 minutes of instructional time. Do we need to be changing the start time or the end time to be within the 990 hours? We've had flexibility during the pandemic. That flexibility is going to start going away. So next steps. I've basically told the assistant superintendents that we will move towards a 40-minute lunch for the start of the school year next year. But I wanted to give them enough time to be able to work with employees to adjust schedules. They are going to have to work with their master schedule. What changes need to be made? What resources do they need to have? And I also want them to be working with their school community councils and their PTAs. This is not a decision that should be made in isolation. If your lunch is starting at 10:30 in the morning, or my kid isn't getting lunch until 1 p.m., I'm going to want to know that as a parent. And what kinds of things are we doing to help support that student? So there needs to be some dialogue and some feedback going back and forth. And I felt like to have that adequately, is it something I could order schools to do and start immediately? Yes. Would that just create other issues? Yes. There are many schools who have tried longer lunch periods, and because of really loud feedback from a lot from employees and teachers about the effects that has had, they've really had to step that back. So we're going to have to provide some support in what that problem solving is going to look like. However, having said that, I would like to say that there are individuals that are now going to USBE and to state legislators that want this mandated. And I just want it known, like, we really do listen to parents. Like, we really are trying to problem solve. And I appreciate the school board taking on this issue to say, we need to be listening to this. This is a concern. And we really do want to solve these problems for parents and concerns for parents. It isn't something that we just want to be like, no, this isn't a big deal. This is a big deal, and we absolutely can solve it at the local level. Sometimes we just need a little bit of time, and so having that is very helpful. Questions?
Lakeview, how did they solve if they have 40-minute lunches? do they have to adjust their time to get all the instructional hours in? Do you know? Like
That's a great question. I'll need to go in and look at what, I think because we haven't held to the 990 hours, they haven't had to worry about it. It is something that we'll have to worry more extensively about.
I'm curious, what are most of our schools, how long are the lunches? Are we talking 30, 35? What's the time difference here? So we're at between 30 and 40, you said? Okay. So for most schools, it's a 10-minute difference? Okay. And for those online, he said only one school does recess first at this time?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Could you use like athletic pennies for if you do 2 grades at recess and like first grade wears like a yellow? And then you're like,
Oh,
hey,
yes.
if you're wearing yellow, come in.
Here, trade me. I'll pay you $10 if you trade me my, the
Like at the trampoline park when you have a wristband and they're like,
Yes, that's
no,
that
you have
expired.
purple bands, you have 5 minutes.
But for clarification, the recess first is not necessarily something we are mandating, right?
I'm not mandating that. I do think it does point to the research that recess first is an exceptional idea. Like it really does actually increase the amount of food that a student consumes. There's significant support with that. But sometimes that isn't, I worry about, does that create other unintended consequences too, so.
Melanie?
With the nutrition workers not being full-time workers, do we worry about the 29.5-hour mark?
Yes, that's definitely a concern.
I actually talked to one of my principals about this specifically when we received all those emails a while back. And at her particular elementary school, they did go recess first for a while, and then they ended up switching back just because of a lot of the complications that it caused. But one of the things she said to me is it actually caused problems within the food making process for the workers because it extended the time that food has to be out and prepared and
that's
ready.
correct.
And so sometimes near the end of the day, it would get a little bit, like just been out for a while or whatever, right?
Right.
And so those kinds of logistical things too were part of the problem. So I mean, like you say, we would have to solve those problems or offer extra support or whatever.
Well, and I think it's something to be really mindful of, that this can't be a decision that isn't made without input from Child Nutrition Services, right? They need some help in, like, here are the things that we're dealing with, and so we're going to need some support, and if that means more funding, or what does that look like, because it's going to be an added expense, likely.
Where do you anticipate finding extra money to pay for this?
That's a great question. It'll come from somewhere. It just,
Devin?
It just means if this becomes the priority, then something else can't be, right? So the money's there. It's just we can prioritize a lot of things. We can't prioritize everything. So we can put, in essence, as we start working with our principals on what this looks like, we can start to say, okay, what are you going to need as we roll this out, and then what is that cost going to be? And then we have to have a discussion about what that looks like.
So you're not 100% sure, or are we for sure doing this?
I feel like we need to. I don't feel like 30 minutes is long enough for students to eat. I do feel like that's creating an issue. So if we need to do something else, I do feel like this is an important enough issue. We need to prioritize it. That is my recommendation.
Okay.
I guess my one thing, I'm so grateful we're having this conversation, and thank you for laying out the complexities for us. Something I often think about is when I'm a big fan of local control, and I know I was talking to someone the other day who works at the state level, and they were like, yeah, we all forget that we're not the most local. And in this case, again, with this important topic, like as a board, we were just talking about curriculum choices, et cetera. I guess I appreciate you saying, like, we could set a guideline, like 40 minutes, but I would really hope we would kind of empower our principals to be able to make some of the decisions about what that would look like for them.
Oh, absolutely.
And how they would roll that out, and also we wouldn't give them, similar to how I don't like it when someone gives me a mandate without funding it, or with, you know what I mean, like that we're mindful in that same way with each of the things we're talking about here tonight, right. How our individual principals decide what's best for their communities
within the framework and what supports do they need. So I liked that. I felt like that's what you're saying, like these are community councils and PTAs would be involved and nutritional workers in how schools decide to meet the needs of their students, because we know that they care as much about this as we do, as any of our parents do, et cetera. So it's good.
Well, and it might mean, for example, every school needs an additional part-time nutritional worker, right? That's great. Can we find that person, right? And then where does that, how does that actually work? So so just helping, there are clearly schools that have been able to problem solve this. And so also allowing them to share those ideas as to what that has worked for them,
I'm guessing if you're a DLI school versus like there are just unique kind of demands on every system,
Yep, for sure.
Last year, the Title I schools were provided snacks for the kids to take home, but I don't remember who provided them, whether they were United Way or Food and Care Coalition.
Yeah,
So I
the
don't know.
Timpanogas, my kids still do snack. They get snacks.
Yeah. Thomas came home from school every day with a bag full of snacks, and so I guess work with one of those groups.
Well, and I think to your point, is that some of our schools are eligible for those things. So then what are we doing to support the students that are in other schools where they're not eligible for that? So that's something that we would, because waiting till 1 o'clock, I feel like is a really long, I wouldn't be able to wait till 1 o'clock to eat lunch.
Or even that, like I substituted at a school where they had a built-in snack time.
Yep.
And I think it was like an hour before school got out, and everybody just stopped what they were doing and pulled out their apple and
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 10 now, the agreement for the East Bay Post High, and we'll hear from Jason Cox.
Thank you for the time. I wanted to just be able to give you an update on East Bay Post High. We had mentioned last month that we were working with the property owner to try to see if we couldn't move into the other side based on the number of students that we're serving at that location. We were actually able to get the agreement in order, and so on Friday this last week, our maintenance department went in and started doing the construction pre-planning, and they're working directly with Brett McCabe, the principal of the location, to make sure that the changes meet the needs of the students there. And this is also an opportunity to say thank you to the parents and the community for, helping us with their input on this. Brett had shared some information with us about the increase in students, but I think sometimes employees aren't sure how far they can go with what they can ask. But parents, reached out and asked us as they worked through their community council. So again, I would like to say thank you to them for just giving us some input, and we're now able to, act on that and provide a better service for students at that location by increasing this space.
Awesome. Thank you for the
How
good news.
long will the lease be for?
I think it's, it wasn't signed for a period of time. It was just
It's open-ended?
Open-ended, yep.
Is it open-ended on their end as well, like they can take back the space anytime they need to? Or?
No, it's been unoccupied for a period of time, and so I think the property owner is just happy to have us in there and was willing to do this. So I wasn't in the negotiation portion. I've only overheard those things, so I don't know that for sure. I haven't spoken with the property owner, but I believe in talking with Derek, it was something that was month to month, and that there wasn't the property owner was willing to work with us on when we would end that. We needed to give him some time if we were going to discontinue it.
What's the timeline for that half being available to then move students over to it?
I think that with Kyle's team, they were going in this week, starting the construction. They were saying that they could do it fairly quickly. I think that they actually could start moving over some of the stuff for the storage portions of it right away. Oh. So I think it's going to be able to be used fairly quickly. Like I said, the storage portion, they were moving over right away. They were building a couple of other meeting rooms and just revamping the bathroom space too. So.
Any further questions or comments for Jason? Okay, thank you so much for that update. We appreciate you guys doing that and getting that ready. All right, well, item number 11, a land trust plan amendment. We'll hear from Jared Seitz.
Spring Creek Elementary School has submitted for approval 2 amendments to their current land trust plan. That was approved by their school community council 7-0. And you have information in front of you that includes 2 slight changes to the goals of their plan. The amendments are really just updated data information based on Acadian scores from the end of last year and then the beginning of year for this current school year under both of those goals. There are no changes to the action items that they have or any of the planned expenditures. It's just minor updates with correct data from the end of last year's scores as well as the beginning of year scores from Acadian's reading.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions for Jared? Okay, we'll be approving this later in our business meeting. Thank you so much, Jared. Item number 12, the Dixon site discussion. We'll give this time to Wendy.
Okay. So we had promised that one of the things that we were going to do for the Dixon Middle School site was that we were going to bring this kind of back in January and talk about some potential neighborhood meeting dates where we could communicate with our neighborhood, with the Dixon neighborhood, lay out the purpose of the meetings, allow them to express concerns, desires, and needs, and for us to be able to communicate our district needs, particularly our needs for our students, and that what our goal is that we can somehow fuse those together to create some options, right, and really work collaboratively so that people are not feeling like things are being done to them, but that we're also using our resources in a very responsible way. I would be leading these meetings. It gives me an opportunity to really understand the frustrations of the past and try to rebuild some trust with the community and to just really create an environment where we could share some ideas and move forward with that. So that's what we're here to kind of update you on. And so we have some proposed meeting dates. I just had some questions about, is this enough time for people to put things together? Do we need to add more meetings? In talking, I particularly talked with Meg and Gina and with Terry. So January 17th was a date that we put out there as a possible meeting at Dixon Middle School. January 25th at 6 p.m. at Timpanogos Elementary School, and this meeting would be held primarily in Spanish, so for our Spanish-speaking families. What do we need to ensure? Some of the questions that I had are making sure that our constituents are feeling valued. Does this feel too quick? You know, the turnaround time is, is it better to have the meeting in February, or does that just feel like we're delaying it? I want to be really receptive and understanding of people's concerns about this and be very responsive. So those are just some of the questions.
We'll just answer those now or go through the slides first?
Go ahead and answer those questions now. I think that's a great idea.
I think we need to go with February. I don't know, the 17th is
next week.
Literally 8 days away. That feels like not enough time for notice for the community.
Yeah, I'm fine moving it to February. I think 2.5 weeks might be enough time. Honestly, if you say anything more than 2.5 weeks, people forget.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think maybe keeping the January 25th and then moving one to February.
Yeah, I like that.
February 1st,
I
whatever.
agree. That.
But people in my neighborhood stop me everywhere I am and ask me what's happening.
Okay.
So as far as the timing goes, that would give the district as well as me time to get the word out. I have, again, people stopping me saying, will you please reach out to me personally? So I have a long list of people I need to reach out to.
But yeah, I think you're right. If you push it too far out, then people forget. I mean, it's.
We should also not call it a neighborhood meeting because then they'll think it's a city neighborhood meeting.
Fair.
Community meeting.
Okay.
Or meet the superintendent.
Like February 7th?
Yeah, so just like the week after, right? Or 2 weeks after.
Yeah, I think February 7th would work.
Okay.
Your second question here of what do we need to do to to make sure everybody feels valued, seen, and heard. I feel like what you listed on the previous slide was just right.
Okay.
Let them express their concerns and communicate our needs, and then try to find a way to fuse those.
To just make sure that they're fused.
That's,
Okay.
I mean, I think what you've laid out is good, unless anyone feels like something else needs to be added.
One question I have is just how will we compile what's heard, and like kind of whose job will that be to be keeping a record and organizing that feedback?
I'm assigning that to communications. So they'll
Excellent.
come to
Okay.
the meetings with us, and
Perfect.
they'll compile all of that information,
Okay,
and then we would do a report to the board the very next board meeting.
Great.
I also had in our notes that there was an attempt also to create a survey possibly that individuals could respond to. So and we could decide, do we want that survey to go out, you know, like the same presentation that we present at these meetings so people have an opportunity to ask questions. We could record those. We wanted to put that meeting on the website and then create a survey that could go with it, like if there's any additional questions
And
where
a
people
QR
could.
code.
Yeah, a QR code. So there are some different ways where we could really engage the community more in that process. So it's like if you can't come to this meeting, we can still ensure that your voice is heard in that. So I can work with the communications team to make sure that that happens. And then really, I think the next step would be to start creating a committee that included board members and community members to say, okay, so now we've heard some of these ideas, let's start to actually figure out which ones we want to
Well, Gina
look
and
at.
Meg, didn't you already start creating a facility advisory committee?
No, we mostly, just kind of discussed what we're talking about here is like what would it look like to engage the community? How would we do that? What's going to be most effective? So we never actually formed anything, but just kind of brainstorming back in the fall, right?
Right.
And sometimes coming up short. Like just
That's
it's hard
the
to
truth.
figure
We
out.
couldn't figure it out.
But I think I like what the plan that we have here. I think it sounds like.
Can I back up to the survey? I feel like I remember saying or kind of talking about as a group that these two meetings would inform the survey, and these
That's
two
what I seem
meetings
to remember
the
too.
two meetings are going to be directed specifically at and for the the Dixon neighborhood. But then that would inform the survey that would go out to the entire community. Does that sound right to everyone else?
I remember
that being our tentative plan, and I think that helps create that balance between giving the Dixon neighborhood a strong voice because it's in their neighborhood, right? But then also making sure the entire community gets to have a voice in it as well, since it affects everyone's taxes and students and whatnot. So.
And we could have them put in their address so we know what neighborhood they're coming from, so we could disaggregate the data and show what's happening there, so that we do know that different neighborhoods might have different voices, and that's okay, but it would help us to be able to identify that. We could do that.
I know there was some question, sorry, I never responded to your email, about how it should look and to make sure that the way that it is presented is in a way that is, I don't know, respectful of the needs of the community. And I do think, in talking to people, I think there is enough, even though we've had the meetings, more than one meeting, and we've had the PowerPoint, and I've tried to talk to people, I think there's enough confusion about what is happening at the site that we do need to be, at the very least, be prepared to give them that information again.
Yeah,
But
you bet.
there definitely needs to be a space for them to then either vent or tell you, like I have people still approaching me about ideas that they have, to at least allow them to have an open forum. So kind of a mixed type of a thing I think would be good. But I think in order to really get good feedback from the community, we're going to have to present in that meeting what the needs of the district are, and then we can do it however, but we can say we have some ideas if you're interested in those, and then go through there, or we could just present it. I think we can kind of feel it out and see what happens, but be prepared to say, here are some, here are the needs, what do you want to do, and then be prepared to tell them what our ideas are.
Okay.
I think we can do that without them feeling that it's been forced upon them.
Right, or saying we're doing one of these. These are just ideas that we have, right? And things that we've been brainstorming around our needs and around things that we see that the district could use and needs.
I like, Gina, your idea though to share what our needs are, then get their ideas on how to meet the needs before we share any of the ideas we've talked about yet. Yeah.
Because I think part of starting this now is, is going to kind of be a little bit behind our strategic plan, right? And so the idea that as we start this now, they'll kind of coincide, and that strategic plan can maybe help inform as we continue to make a decision about Dixon, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think we had one more slide, which you kind of said.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
good. No, you're good.
I'm a bad clicker.
See?
I was behind.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, any other comments, questions? or
I have one
anything
more
here?
comment. Earlier in the meeting, we talked about Tint View and another phase of building at some point and paying for it. And I just want to say to the community that for me, in that discussion, is also the Dixon site. That I think they're both important, and we need to figure out with both of them what we are going to be doing and not leave one behind, I guess how I'd say it.
Lisa, did you have something? No. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you so much for that discussion, Wendy. We'll look forward to those meetings.
Great.
All right. We need to quickly go over the board calendar, the graduation speaking assignments, committee assignments. This is our first school board meeting of the year, and so we just need to make some quick assignments. So first, let's go ahead and go with pop up the board meeting schedule, school board meeting schedule for 2024. Everybody has that and was able to look at that ahead of time. Does anybody have any comments or questions or suggested changes or reservations about anything on this schedule?
I have a question. It says tentative joint city council meeting and board meetings.
Yeah.
Was it under my impression that we were going to just do that twice a year now?
So we did reach out to the city council and asked if they wanted to move back to 4. Jennifer and I talked about it, felt like we had very little time and a lot of important things to talk about, and that possibly going back to 4 meetings might be a good option. Their response was that they only want to do 2. So while they're on here tentatively, do we know which 2 yet, Bonnie? Is that why they're still tentative? Say that again? We do have the dates.
So it is only going to be 2 though.
It is going to only be 2. So then I guess when we make the motion, April and August. Okay. So when we do approve this later in the business meeting, we can add with the changes discussed in study session to make sure that we just have the April and the August joint meetings. Okay.
I believe they said if we prefer that second one to be in October, they could find a date for that. And I'm just wondering if that might be better, like we'll have been in school a little bit and could maybe speak to things. I don't know if we need to figure that out now, because that can be adjusted later, right?
Like the second.
Yeah, okay. So right now we could leave it April and August, but no, that's,
Yeah, currently it's
Subject to
right
change.
around the start of school, which is a very tricky time for educators. So I would personally prefer an October meeting as well, but
What if we pushed like both of them back for next year so that we did, I guess if we're trying to do 2 in a calendar year, that won't work, but, because we have one in December right now, but maybe the following year, we could do it so that we do them at times that are maybe, like you're saying, a little more like October and March or something where we're pre-budget and like post the school year going, just in terms of really collaborating in an effective way around the timeline for what we want to do.
they also just today installed, was it 4 new council members? So
Correct.
their desire to meet might change with new
true.
city councilors.
Do you mind following up on that, Bonnie? Just asking if it's possible to move the August one to October. Is everyone okay with October, with a request for October? Okay. And if they're, we
Yeah,
can,
August 15th is a no.
yeah, August 15th is literally the day before
The
school
day of
starts.
school, yeah.
So that'll be a really hard day for us, so, okay. All right. Do we have a meeting on Valentine's Day this coming year? We don't.
13th.
All right, good. Because we always have meetings on Valentine's Day, so that'll be good. Okay. Not always. It's just happened in the past. All right, very good. So on to graduation speakers. Okay, we need graduation speakers for Provo High, Timpview, Adult Ed, Fall Graduation, and Independence.
Do we have the dates for adult ed and fall?
We have those.
Because I didn't see it on the calendar.
Nikki was here. Is she gone?
Just left.
She just left. Of course she did. She was our one and only audience member. I was excited to have her here. It's going to be around that same graduation time, right? We have
With Independence, it's usually the same day.
Or the day
before.
they haven't always been on the same day. They haven't. So I know you could plan on that same time, but I don't know. I mean that same time of May. I don't know the specific day. Anybody know that? Daryl, you don't know that either? Okay. We'll have to plan. Maybe we can plan a speaker and an alternate just in case the
Can always
speaker can't.
adjust.
Yeah, we could always adjust if we need to. Okay, so to start, is there anyone
I would like Timpview.
who wants one? Okay. So Timpview. Do you have a graduate?
I do.
Oh, that's exciting.
I also have a graduate at Provo. So I would like to take Provo if everyone's okay with that.
It looks like you're kind of up. You two are the two that didn't speak in 2023.
I think we intentionally did that because we knew this year. Yeah.
Yeah, because we knew we were going to want them this year. So that leaves adult ed, that leaves independence, and that leaves fall graduation. Are there any volunteers?
Can I take fall graduation because May 23rd is my anniversary? Not that my husband wouldn't be so excited to spend it at one of these graduations, but
How romantic. That's like as romantic as our Valentine's Day board meetings. So yeah.
I don't know, there's been a lot of these.
I'm happy to do any or none, but I don't want to
No, I'm
repeat
looking
it
here.
Independence 2 years in a row. They don't want me there twice.
Okay.
Something.
So,
I mean, I'm
so
sure
can we
it's
put you on
fine,
adult
but-
ed then?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to do it, but I'm saying I'm also happy to let someone else do it if they want to. Yeah.
Who didn't speak?
Jennifer and I were off last year.
Oh, okay. I'll do Independence.
Okay.
You know, the short version.
And Meg, if you want to do adult ed, the following year I have a graduate, so I could take an off year too, right? If that's how
I
it
can
works.
do, I did adult ed this year.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, just do it
We
again?
don't want to have you repeat.
Oh, but you just did adult ed. I see. Okay, then I'll do it. Yeah,
But then you,
Sorry.
yeah, I think
that's fine.
you could still do
Terry, do
Timpview
adult
next year.
ed.
I don't care.
Meg, do.
I really don't.
So Meg and Gina, that would give you an off year. Are you okay with that? You're
Yeah.
Should I bother to
I'll
even
take
ask that
it.
question? Okay. Okay, so
Or
that will-
if Lisa wants to make sure to speak at the Timpview graduation, I'm happy to step in now and then have a break next year.
I don't think you need an off year before you take Timpview or Provo necessarily. It's really whatever. If you love speaking and you want to speak every year, I think no one would care. So
I am not that person. I'm just willing.
you're just willing to volunteer,
Speak
which we
or not
appreciate.
speak.
Okay, so just to recap, Jennifer will be speaking at Timpview, I will be speaking at Provo, Lisa will take adult ed, Terry will be speaking at the Independence graduation, and Melanie will take the fall graduation. Okay? Great. The last discussion may take a little bit longer, is we need to go over committee assignments. So, really the committee assignments we typically I feel like keep for 2 years, so there's not really changes we need to make necessarily to assignments unless anyone feels like they need a change of assignment, or unless anyone feels really strongly that we could consolidate committee assignments or get rid of some committee assignments. Jennifer and I did go through the assignments on the spreadsheet we made, and we highlighted some that we think we could possibly eliminate, that maybe we don't need board members on. And I guess I can go over those real quick and see if.
On mine, the don't need The Joint Educator Evaluation Committee. They
Okay.
don't need a board member on it.
Okay, so I have that one highlighted, so I think we can just eliminate the board assignment on that. Okay, I'm fine with that.
And then our data advisor thing kind of morphed into finance committee.
Okay, so that was one of our notes, which was, do we have a capital outlay committee on this? And I'm trying to decide if that is the same as facilities. No.
No. Capital outlay
Devin's
would
saying
be
yes.
things like construction and building, and facilities is like who's gonna get carpet and what does a painting schedule look like and those kinds of things.
Okay, so you're saying that data advisors has turned into facilities?
Finance.
Finance.
It's a finance committee.
Finance, okay. So can I change that on our list here? Because we were wondering what happened to finance.
I'm asking Devin, did you have something you want to say?
So, no, the audit committee has really morphed into the finance committee.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I'm on the audit committee.
So the audit committee is now the finance.
Okay, I'm going to change that on the
But you're on the
spreadsheet.
finance committee, if you want to be on it.
Okay, so I have listed here Lisa, Melanie, Meg on finance, is that correct? That's what we have currently.
Yeah, but have we been, I don't even know if that's.
No, I don't think, are you on finance? I
No,
think
it was
Terry was on
Terry.
finance.
Well, I'm listed as audit, which
It
I was
was
going to ask. I don't even
Melanie-
know what that is, but
Melanie,
it's finance.
me, and Lisa,
Lisa.
are on finance.
So I'm going to take off audit on mine.
Melanie. Oh, I apologize. I'm reading this wrong. I have Meg listed as an alternate. I think. Oh, well, it just went away.
Okay.
No, it was no. I was wrong that I was right that I was wrong. I don't know. Whatever. Okay. All right. So we just turned audit into finance. So data advisors. Do we feel like we can get rid of that?
What is it?
Yeah.
It's.
I don't even know
I
what
was
it
such
is.
a good
Don't know
committee
what it is.
member.
It's never really
even
happened.
know what it
It's
is.
never. No one's ever done anything with it. So I think it's obsolete.
Made a new one and didn't use that one.
Okay, so we can get rid of data advisors. Let me go back to the top. Jennifer and I wondered if we felt it was still necessary to have a board member on the CAPS committee. We have a lot of programs throughout the district, right, that are running, and we don't always have a board member sitting on every advisory
I
committee.
mean,
CAPS was, I felt like it
can
was
speak
good.
to that, and so could Lisa, and you've come to some of them too.
It was good when it
It was good at the
getting started.
beginning as we were getting things
Yeah.
going, but I think it may be as necessary if you need to go, but I don't think it needs to be, it's a monthly, I can't remember.
Monthly,
It's monthly, and I just don't know that, as a board member, we actually add much to that meeting.
I feel like if you love it and you want to go, we can keep it.
She loves it. I do love it. I will say this, I don't think I add a ton of value right now because of my own constraints of my work schedule. But I love to go when I can, and I was hoping to be able to understand a way I could contribute better and had a meeting set up about that. So I could stay on there with them understanding and you guys understanding just the constraints of my job right now.
Well, I want to know if you want to.
Yeah,
You do.
I'm happy
Okay.
to.
Okay, then I'm fine.
I think just know, Lisa, that if you can't make it, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. We also talked about, I'm listed as the community council advisor, which I just actually discussed with Jared a minute ago. There's not a ton of responsibility here. It's basically just a liaison to the board. For example, when edits like that come up or amendments come up, my role has been in the past when I worked with Alex was to just approve that if it was minor enough rather than having it come before the board. And then just also being the go-to for like the community council trainings and stuff. It's a pretty minor role, and it could just be an assignment to like the board president, maybe to be that person to look at amendments, or I don't know that we need to make it a committee assignment. I'm happy to just keep it the way it is. I don't know if anyone has an opinion on that, but it's one that I think if we're looking to consolidate or get rid of things, and then again, it's not that big of a deal anyways. So I don't know it's not a big time commitment.
Yeah, it seems to make sense as an assignment for if you are making a decision, say, oh, this doesn't need to go before the board, I can just approve this small change.
Yeah.
That
So
would
more
be a president duty.
feels more like an assignment,
That's what it
right?
sounded
Okay, so I think I may take this, I'll go ahead and take this off of like a committee. It's not a committee assignment, it's just gonna be an assignment from here on out. Okay, perfect. Jennifer and I also discussed the safety committee, having a member on the safety committee. I know they still meet once a month. I feel like it was like so important during COVID. Do we feel like we still need someone? Because we get the updates, we get those,
The emails,
the
yeah.
emails, and it lists the entire thing, and we can read through it. you're on it now, Terry. Do you feel like it's super necessary? Do you feel like it's something that we should continue? Do you want to?
I do, only because it's every department's involved in this,
Okay.
everything. So if I can at least be there to then share with you guys, sometimes there's more on it than it's just the minutes.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. If you,
Because it's a multi-department meeting.
I do love reading the minutes, but if you feel like, I mean, I don't know that a board member needs to send those out versus someone in that meeting maybe sending them out. Those are, like, they cover so much ground, and I feel like I love kind of knowing that those conversations are happening, they're doing the work. It's not.
It's
I
just
don't know
a
that
big,
someone needs to sit there.
all-encompassing, everybody's there.
okay, if you feel like it's still worth it to have a board member there, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually think it's really helpful to have a board member present just because school safety right now is just such a big issue and we have a lot of legislation that's happening with it. It just helps us to have a pulse of what are you hearing from constituents and things like that so that we can make sure we're addressing that. So I actually think it's probably a really good idea.
Okay. I also highlighted the Diversity and Equity Council, not because I don't think it's important or that we don't need a board member there, but I was also wondering about the functionality of it now that we don't have Brian, and I don't know what's still happening and what's not. And so I was wondering, Gina, if you could give us some insight on that.
That one's Meg.
Or Meg.
Come on it.
Meg.
Meg.
I'm looking at the wrong,
I took
sorry,
it
I'm looking
over
at the
from
wrong
Gina.
year. I'm so sorry. I'm looking at 2022, but we're looking at Meg. I apologize.
Well, I think, yeah, we're just, if I'm correct, right, Wendy, we're just waiting to kind of do our strategic plan and before we decide kind of structurally what that's going to look like within the district, as opposed to what kind of role somebody in that type of position will be, right?
Okay.
And so there's not much happening right now. I do think, I mean, what I do is I have been going when I can to the LGBTQ plus parent advisory committee meeting, and I need to see which other ones are holding regular meetings, which I don't know if they are. I think maybe
Our Native American families do, because Meredith helps with that. But also, I spoke with Doug this morning, and he does want to work with our African American families to make sure that that committee gets up and running. So there is a desire, and we have talked in cabinet actually about having a different cabinet member kind of help support that, and as we're waiting in the interim for kind of the strategic plan to develop. So.
So maybe I think maybe keep me there, and I'll work with Doug. I'll just talk with Doug, and then I'll make sure to be getting to each of those. So.
Okay. This is just a quick technicality, but in order to make sure we have the proper recordings of this meeting, we actually need to take a 30-second recess so we can stop the recorder and start it again. So we are going to take a 30-second recess.
I think I'm getting worried about people driving home in the snow. Or are we beyond that worry?
If I'm having
I don't even know I don't know. I'm just gonna walk home. Jason and I are gonna just walk home.
We need to get you like a hotel room.
My problem is I didn't bring
I
anything.
know, you have to
I thought about it actually, and then I didn't.
We're good? Okay. Was it 30 seconds? Does everybody feel rested? Okay.
Ready to go for another 4 hours.
All right. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're back. Another committee I had highlighted, which I think maybe doesn't necessarily need to be a committee, but maybe again another assignment, was it's one of mine, which is the communications committee, which really is just I get an update from Caleb and then I pass it on to the board. That's really how it has been functioning, which has been helpful to get to know some of the details and the good things that are happening in communication. I almost feel like it can be achieved in the same way by having Caleb send us an update. But I'm okay with keeping it as well to have a little bit more of a direct line with communications. I don't know how everyone feels. I feel like we have a better relationship with our communications department now than we have ever had, and things are going better, and I'm happier with it now than it ever has been, and so I don't feel like maybe we necessarily need,
I'm fine just having Caleb send us like a monthly or quarterly.
We've been kind of working on like a quarterly or maybe like a 3 time a year basis. So.
And then if there's needs, then we bring it up in board meeting.
Yeah. Does everyone feel okay with that?
Yeah. Do you guys feel
Would-
okay with that?
Would we need to change Max's assignment then?
We might, yeah. So that also leaves me with very, very little to do. So I'm
No,
willing
you
to
have
take on
plenty-
someone
you
else.
have plenty-
differ.
And that was not on purpose, but I'm happy to take on a little bit more. 'Cause I know some of you guys are really stressed out with a lot of your committee assignments.
I think you have enough, in my opinion.
I think so too.
I'm not saying that I have a lot of extra time, but I'm willing to share the burden. So, okay.
I have something real quick on mine.
Sure.
So the Allied Agency Committee is dear to my heart. But before Travis Cook left, he said, I don't know if we need a board member. I'm like, shh, I really like this. So I actually think this one may be more of an assignment. Like I went and I think I stepped all over Jason Garrison's toes because I was jumping in. Jason or Doug or whomever will do a fine job without me there. So I think that that's another one that I can step
be
in, or
eliminated.
whoever can step in if you need me, but I think they might like it if I don't show up. Just kidding. Jason and I have a good
So
relationship.
if you feel like that's a good route to go ahead and remove that from a committee assignment, then I'm okay with that as well. Okay. Okay, so Jennifer, are you kind of helping adjust this while we're going? Okay, great. The last one was the Capital Outlay Committee, which I don't even know what that is. We are saying, is that facilities or is that finance?
I think that's Capital Facilities Committee, which is
Capital
what Gina, Meg, and I are on.
Okay, it does say Melanie G. Okay, so let's just make sure we name that correctly. Capital Facilities.
And that one meets quarterly, I believe.
Yep, that's exactly the description. Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, so as far as committee assignments go, we've kind of consolidated a little bit and eliminated. Is there anyone who feels like they have too much, they need to give something up, they need to do
Well,
something
actually, I
different?
was going to suggest, do we need the construction committees anymore?
Oh, we actually moved so we did move some down to some obsolete, which I apologize, I forgot to mention that. We moved Shoreline Construction Committee, Wasatch Construction Committee, Insurance Committee, Board Goal Strategic Plan Committee, and Committee Revising Committee. Do you guys remember that?
I feel like there's a great story there. I don't even want to know about that.
So I
Maybe for
moved
the
those
committee,
down to be obsolete committees. I know that we're not done with Shoreline or Wasatch yet, and if they
But
needed
that was
board-
more more
pre-construction.
pre-construction
Right.
committee, yeah.
So we did move those down to the obsolete committees list, which we'll add a few more to those now.
I do see on here board handbook update. We haven't really touched that.
No, and I think that's a good project for
Do
you
you
and I
wanna-
to actually
I
take
think
on
that's
this
a
year.
good thing for you and I to start tackling.
Do you need a third person on it?
Would it be good to have a third person?
Somebody wants to volunteer. I mean, I have no
Who would
problem.
like to take on more work?
Not it.
Okay, I think we can stick with Melanie and I on that for now, and we'll make that a project for ourselves this year, and we can do that periodically throughout the year. Maybe do like a section a month or something to that effect. And if anyone feels like they want to join us on that, we'll be happy to take a third person. Any other assignments, committee assignments anyone wants
Do
to
we need
address?
to change our USBA
delegate?
I think that'll get updated, right? As long as we give Bonnie the information? Because I'm not the
Yeah.
delegate anymore, I'm
Do
the
that
alternate.
delegate stuff. I've got
That's
that written
right.
down.
Okay, so we do need to assign a board representative
Oh,
for the
that's right.
delegate assembly.
That's right.
So we have our one for our region. Who's our region rep?
There was a few people that,
Terry.
region rep was Terry.
It's Terry.
Okay, great. So, and who would, and I guess it doesn't matter who the alternates are because.
I think Gina was an alternate, is that right, Gina?
And I think I was an alternate too.
Is there anyone who wants to be the official Provo School District?
What is the
rep?
date of that again? Because I know that was.
June 8th.
At the
I'm so
at
sad.
the
I have to.
delegate.
I just want to go on record to say that is one of my favorite meetings I've ever been to in my life. And
was
I have
pretty
to miss
awesome.
it this year for a wedding.
I want to say this. I want to ditto that because I think I've been to every single one since I've been on the board, and I love that meeting. And I will be out of town this
I
year.
had no idea a meeting could be so
I'm happy.
entertaining.
I'm happy to do it because I can plan on being there.
Okay.
But
Is
if
everyone okay
somebody
with
else wants to
Melanie
take
being
it-
our?
Take some notes. Okay.
For me.
Can I have the
Maybe I'll
frisbee afterward?
Yes, I'll bring you the frisbee.
Okay. All right, perfect. So now we have a board rep for that. And I think that covers everything unless anyone else has any changes they feel they need to make.
Do we need an alternate to the district or no?
Probably. Is it, who
Probably
else?
should.
I can do the alternate if you
Yeah.
want.
Okay, that's fine. I was gonna say it's not as formal. Like at the meeting, we had to like present that and have it on there. But we can change it anytime if
Yeah.
we need to as a district for our one. But yes, we'll put you down as an alternate.
Okay. All right. let's do this pretty quickly. Anybody have, well, I don't want to rush anyone. If you, are there any, we'll move on to the consent calendar now. Any questions for the consent calendar?
I do.
Okay, Terry.
Is Jason here? I had a question. When I was looking at all the, because I was wondering about Lance. So, because he's just a transfer, he's not being released technically from Sunset View and then hired by Franklin, right? How does that?
Yeah, it's a transfer of position. It's a new assignment. It's not considered a release.
Okay. And then, well, Doug's not here, so I won't ask my question. And then, for Devin, maybe you can answer this. How many more payments to Westland about Timpview should we expect?
There's still several, since the project's still going on for several more months, plus the contingency. So I would expect probably at least 8 or 9 more.
Okay. And then core architecture, I saw on there. What is that?
Core architecture is the old Curtis Minor.
Oh.
So their company has been renamed to Core Architecture.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is for Shoreline.
That's all I have.
Okay, great. All right, and then the last item, item number 15 is our upcoming board calendar items. We really only have 2. The Leaders Associates training in St. George is listed, but that's really just going to be Wendy and anyone else?
Daryl, Jason, and Jared.
Okay. And then we have our next study session and business meeting on January 23rd, and then the following study session and business meeting will be on February 13th.
So I don't know how to bring this up, but Jared just texted me and stated that February 7th is SCPs for elementary, so that would not be a great date. So I would like to suggest 2 alternatives. One would be January 31st, so that would be the week after the 25th, or we could also do February 12th.
Let's do the 31st.
31st?
Well, that's my. So if we're doing the 25th.
I was thinking the 31st would be good. Or the 1st. I don't know if it matters a Wednesday versus Thursday, if we think one will get a better turnout than another. But
yeah. We could do what about the 1st?
I think the 1st I had a conflict, so then somebody else would have to do it. So
no, I think it's good for you to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
No, that's great. Thanks for
Okay, we are ready to move on to the business items. Hallelujah. At 9:05 in record time. Okay. We are now going to have a consideration to approve the land trust plan amendment, and I will entertain a motion there.
I move that we approve the amendment to the Spring Creek Land Trust Plan as discussed in study session.
Thank you so much. That is a motion made by Board Member Boyce. Is there a second?
I second that.
Go ahead.
Second by Board Member Partridge. It's always a race.
I'm always
Melanie always loses.
I'm gonna get there.
Okay, thank you so much. But we just heard from Jared about it, so I don't feel like we need to summarize that again, because we're in the same meeting. So, if that's okay with you, Jared. So I'll go ahead and have any further comments on that by Lisa, if there's any, starting with Lisa, if there's any. Okay, we'll go ahead and take a vote then. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Our second business item, a consideration to approve the board meeting schedule for 2024. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the board meeting schedule for 2024 with any changes made in study session.
Thank you so much. Motion officially made by Board Member
Wait,
Hall.
study session?
I know I said that last time. Do we need to amend
Well,
that?
it was still study session.
Well, no, we were technically in business
Study
meeting.
session items, and we didn't start our business meeting until we, well, no, we're in business
So I'll
meeting.
restate that. I move that we approve the board meeting schedule for 2024 with any changes made in business meeting.
Okay, that sounds great. Motion made by Board Member Hall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who was it?
Me. I win.
All right, it was second by Board Member Hales. Hall and Hales, a team together on this one. If there's any, let's see, I don't believe we need to have a summary on this one since we just discussed it in the same meeting. So any further comments or questions, starting with Board Member Hall, if there's any? Okay, great. We'll go ahead and vote. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? All right, that motion passes unanimously as well. We're now going to approve our consent calendar. Is there a motion on the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the items on the consent calendar.
Thank you so much. Motion made by Board Member Hales. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Boyce. Any further discussion or comments starting with Board Member Hales, if there's any? Okay. We just discussed this, so I don't feel like we need a summary here either. We'll go ahead and vote. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? All right, that motion passes unanimously as well. We will now hear from our student board member, one of our student board members, Will Widener, with his report.
Okay, so we have not had our SDC meeting since that was scheduled to be the first day back from school, and we decided we didn't want to do that. So we are planning to have it tomorrow, assuming school isn't canceled. I can say that most of the members would not really complain if school was canceled.
We don't ever
we love the
cancel
students.
school. We just do a remote day.
Remote day.
No, there's none of this.
But we're planning with the upcoming policies. We'll try to discuss those tomorrow, especially the inclusion policy, but we'll also work on student travel. I don't anticipate any big concerns there, but are there any questions?
Any questions for Will? Go ahead.
What is one thing that you got out of the conference that you attended this last weekend with us?
I really did like meeting with the other student members, and I think with the upcoming legislative session, we'll try and stay in touch, especially with like the school safety amendments. With that coming up, we'll maybe coordinate on that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Will. All right. We really, really appreciate having Devin Daly with us tonight, stepping in Derek's place. Thank you so much for being here, Devin. It's time for the business administrator's report. So tonight it's the Devin Daly report. If you have anything to report.
Doing great in the business office.
Excellent. We love to hear that. Thank you so much.
I have a question. Have we filled the position?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Is it open and
Closed.
Need to
It's
push your mic when
Oh,
you-
sorry. It is not filled yet. It is closed. We're just going through the applications and planning on doing interviewing here in a couple weeks.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Board member roundtable. We're going to make this one simple tonight.
Can we just,
Does anybody have a committee they would like to report on? Gina.
I was supposed to report on something specific for LegCom, Legislative Committee, but I'm calling it LegCom.
I like it.
And I don't remember what it was.
Probably
email our,
trying to say the name.
the email Oliver. Please email your people. Oh, I know what it was. So Wendy is going to be writing an email, a weekly email during the session to our legislators to let them know kind of our feelings on different things and kind of update them on everything that's happening. And so we will send that out to the board and try and make it pretty simple. You guys have read Wendy's emails. They're very easy to digest. And so what we're asking is for some help in contacting legislators. We are going to contact the legislators, but it would be great if other board members would contact specifically your own legislators, and then in your assignments have people, especially on some of the bigger ones that are going to come up, have like PTA, talk to the PTA, talk to school community councils, whatever other things you serve on, to have them advocate for public education. And so I think that was the one. Did I get that right? Okay.
Can I ask a question? I would love that information to go to our PTA legislative.
I'm gonna
reps.
send it to the,
Awesome.
I'm gonna send it to Michelle Wages. So when I
That's
send
so
it to all
great.
of you, it'll be sent to her as well, and she'll just send,
That's
which
really
I found
great.
out today.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can report on that quickly, because I was going to report on the PTA council committee meeting was today. And yeah, we had a great discussion about the legislative session coming up. Wendy's going to share her email, and there was this great dialogue about their support. And then their VP, Melissa Jones, already has communicated about how to access different bills, education bills that are going to be, that are already being looked at. I'm not saying the words right, but so that happened today, which is great.
Okay. Any other committee assignments that need to be reported on? past or present. 'Cause we
I
did
just wanted to
eliminate.
comment that the Foundation Easter Basket Auction, just to save your date for the board members and anyone listening, this is a great event every year. We raise a lot of money through the Provo City School District Foundation that supports our after-school programs and teacher grants. It will help with cost for Big Springs, and that is March 18th. It's a Monday night. So just to put that date in your calendar now so that hopefully you can come and support, and it's always a really great night to support our kids and to really gather resources from our community and partner with people who really do care about our students.
Thank you so much.
Bonnie can add that to the calendar.
She already did. It's on our Google Calendar right there.
Perfect. Any other reports tonight? Okay, then what we have left is our superintendent's report.
So we'll make this really quick because there's a snow squall or something going on out there. First and foremost, there is a 2-hour late start tomorrow. So schools are starting 2 hours later than normal. So I will report on that. Everyone should have phone calls. I did want to highlight, we did a Find Your Swing Pin contest. Brooke Mangum from Dixon Middle School won. And so we went and did a cute little podcast with her. So she's a student at Dixon Middle School. Independence High School has officially exited from CSI status. They did meet their graduation goal requirements, so they have worked really super hard. I'll work with Daryl to do something to celebrate their staff and have a celebration with them. And then today, Assistant Superintendent Jared Seitz went to Provo Peaks Elementary and celebrated Kathy Messenbrink, who is a 3rd grade teacher. She's one of 8 teachers in the state that won the Science of Reading Award from USBE. So that is huge. So huge shout out to her. It's awesome. So just wanted to highlight that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It is time to adjourn this meeting, and we're doing something that's slightly different tonight than we would normally do. Instead of just adjourning this meeting and ending for the night, we're actually going to move ourselves, the board, back into an executive session, and that will automatically adjourn this meeting and then put us into that executive session. So is there a motion to convene the executive session for the purposes of discussing personnel?
I move that we move into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
Thank you so much. Motion made by Board Member Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Hills. On this one, we'll need to use a roll call vote to go ahead and start that executive session. So we'll start with Melanie.
Melanie Hall, aye.
Gina Hales, aye.
Meg Van Wagenen, aye.
Rebecca Nielsen, aye.
Jennifer Partridge, aye.
Terry McCabe, aye.
Lisa Boyce, aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're now in our executive session, and we'll actually move back down to Boardroom 1 to finish that up.
Drive safe, everybody.
Help you guys, especially.